How's it going, everybody? I'm Aaron, and this is Seeking Media Productions. And I just got through watching Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. Okay, so I'm going to have to tell this right here and right now. A lot of the hate that's going into this movie might not necessarily be directed to where it needs to go. In fact, I don't feel as though this movie deserves a lot of the hate that has been generated from it. If anything, I feel as though critics who went to go watch this film or heard anything else about it may not have got the full story or understood exactly where their critiques needed to go. Specifically, when it comes to this story, I feel as though if there was any real major problems that are generated from it, is specifically in pacing and in certain plot details. But we'll go into that a little bit later. Let's talk about that story first. The story in this film is incredibly plot driven. Yeah, I'm using one right now because I'm a fan of the series, and just understanding this right now, even though I am a fan of the Wizarding World, I take this movie as any other movie I would critique, and I'm definitely going to point out some flaws this movie does have, because there are some definite problems that I had. But specifically the story. The story was very plot driven. There's a lot of content in this. And if you're not paying attention, you might fall short on a lot of the details that's going to go on. And because this is a very plot-driven story, it can at times feel a little too much. Or at least it drags on a little longer than it needs to. But this is only momentarily. There's a lot of stuff in this film. Even though there's a lot of content, a lot of the content they do show you is very engaging and very promising. Characters in this film are told definitely far better than they were in the first film. I actually end up liking the character Newt Scamander a hell of a lot more. I liked definitely Johnny Depp's portrayal of Grindelwald. I felt as though I like a lot of individuals thought that he was going to botch this one, or he definitely probably wasn't the best suited for it, but he ends up winning me over. The Lita Strange, Zoe Kravitz, she did a really nice job playing Lolita. I also like Queenie and Jacob, the Nomad. He came back in this. Actually, a lot of individuals from the first one came back in this film. And you're introduced to a few other cool characters too. But a few of them, like, I'm still on the defense of Tina. I feel as though Tina's storyline, her character, don't really care for her. I feel as though that's something that this film there's still some drives as towards where this story will be led by. I feel as though for the character of Newt Scamander specifically, even though his character, I feel as though he's a developing hero. If anything, I'm attributing his character to be a hell of a lot more like the character of Luke Skywalker from the Star Wars series, where in the first two films, the audience has to grow with this character. He has to become the hero that everybody's going to eventually want him to be, who he's meant to become. I feel as though in this series, Fantastic Beasts, specifically in Crimes of Grindelwald, he is definitely growing into this leading man. He still needs a lot more work, but I feel as though everything that he needed to work up to becoming the hero is coming together. The production values in this film are better than they were in the first film. They were really, really well done. I loved it. There's a lot of cool action sequences, and there's definitely a lot more magic. The world behind it is fleshed out a little bit more better, and I feel as though it's just a lot more entertaining. There's as far as problems, like I said, there's definitely, like I said, there's a big problem with the pacing situation. And then there's another significant situation. The character of Albus Dumbledore. Even though I like Jude Law's portrayal of Dumbledore in this film, I have to point out that there might be a significant plot hole, or at least a problem with his casting. Whereas in the first time you see a younger Dumbledore in Chamber of Secrets, and then the second time within the Half-Blood Prince, you're shown an older looking Dumbledore, specifically in the same time frame that he's technically within this series, doesn't add up. Casting a younger actor like Jude Law for the character of Dumbledore might not have necessarily been the correct choice to go. I feel as though that's something that a lot of people are neglecting to touch upon, and I feel as though that has to be said. As far as I'm also concerned, there's a huge twist in this movie that is going to go over a lot of people's heads, and I feel as though that needed to be touched on a lot stronger and hit on in this film. It's definitely in the first film, a lot more so than it is in this movie. It's a big twist, and it almost threw me off guard, but I feel as though it needed a little bit more attention and work. But with that said, if I were to give this film a grade, I would have to throw this film as it was a great film to watch. But that's it. It wasn't definitely deserving of all the hate that it was getting, but it definitely needed to have been addressed with a fault. It definitely has. I really enjoyed this film. I feel as though this film was probably, if they took the direction in this film and threw it into the first Fantastic Beasts, I would enjoyed the first Fantastic Beasts as much as I did this one. But that's about it. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, I'm here. Hit that little notification. I'm Aaron, and thank you for joining us and Seeking Media Productions. See ya.